Okay, Claudia, so just a few more questions then before we end this interview today. Is there a particular reason you want to become a barrister instead of a solicitor?
I think for me, I know how I work and I like having a lot of things to do at once. And knowing how barristers work in terms of they come up at different hours. I mean, I'm personally a night owl and I like working at night.
Yeah, same.
And I think it's, I normally I wouldn't think like this, but I think the kind of day-to-day basis where one day you can end up in like Birmingham, the next day you could be in London for like a 4-day hearing. That for me is really interesting because you don't know what to expect, and I think it's going to keep you kind of on your toes, kind of spontaneous aspect of it. You might get a case obviously months in advance, but you also might get it the day before, and you've got to kind of go through everything.
Yeah, work with that time frame.
Yeah, and I think for me, I know that I've kind of honed that skill through my history degree, but also work experiences, just reading loads of things and being able to emphasize what's really important, what isn't really relevant. And I think that's really key for a barrister.
It is.
You need to be able to go through loads of vast amounts of information and know what's important and integral for your case. And I think I would thrive doing something like that. And not that solicitors aren't important, they're really, really key, as I've spoken about. But I personally would like to wear a wig and would like to wear a gown and be important, represent someone that can't represent themselves. Whereas a solicitor, obviously you have that more key communication with the client, but I know that there are other options. You can become a solicitor advocate or vice versa with direct access and things like that, but I just feel like for me, I would thrive being a barrister.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's just about where you align and where your kind of like your personality traits are best kind of suited and fitted, because I really do appreciate the work of a solicitor, as you said as well. But I know for me and kind of my personality and who I am, I would love to be, to be standing in front of a judge in court, really kind of like recounting the facts and sharing with what obviously the case is and what it entails. And that's what I want to do as well and have. So I feel like it's really about who you are, what you want to do, how you want to spend your working life as well. And I have actually heard of people who did practice as a barrister and are now practicing as a solicitor. So it's good that you have that kind of flexibility that if you find it's not for you, which some people do, they can obviously switch back. I know for me, I will always be a barrister and then hopefully obviously a judge, but I know that other people do want to have those options. Now, let's kind of talk about then what you're going to be doing in September, I believe, isn't it? This September. Great. So that's your PGDL. You'll be studying at the University of Law. So how did it come about and why did you choose the University of Law?
So for me, it's kind of switched up, which is quite strange. I initially thought I was going to go to BPP. I was quite certain on that. And then I think it was in November, I got a call from one of the people on like the advisors or something to do with BPP, just about the different modules and options and courses they've got available. And the reason I thought I'd go to BPP is they had an option where you could do a master's. You would do your GDL and you could do the first part of bar training, and that would all come under master's funding. And then they said they were scrapping course, and I said, okay, that's not very helpful because I don't want to do that.
Not gonna work,
So I was really considering, do I want to do a master's for my PGDL? Because as you will know, it's very expensive. But for me, what I've decided to do is do the normal PGDL. I'm quite fortunate because I'm applying for scholarships, obviously, but my parents have said that they'll help out if need be. And obviously, I'm doing it part-time, so I'm going to be working alongside to pay for the course too. But the reason I didn't do a master's is because, firstly, I can't put myself through another dissertation. I've absolutely had enough of them. And also because the University of Law offers the bar course as a master's. So what I thought was really good experience was that you could do your bar course, and then the additional part to gain the master's qualification is you could write your dissertation, you could also do another module, or you could do pro bono work. And for me, pro bono work is just something I would really want to do. So hopefully, obviously, if they still offer that in a few years' time, that would be great. But the University of Law, I visited the Moorgate campus and the Bloomsbury one, and I really, really loved it. I think it fits for me. And I know people that have gone to both university, BPP and University of Law, and they have said the University of Law seems to be a lot better just in terms of communication and how supported students are. I think non-law students especially, I mean, I hope that I seem quite confident, but also I know that it's very competitive, and you're going to be competing with law students who've been doing it already for 3 years. So you really want to make sure that you've got the foundations there from a really good university that is going to help you out.
Yeah. That's imperative. That's what I'd say to all non-law students going into law. Make sure that you are ready for, what it will, what it will entail and what it requires of you. And I know Claudia mentioned before about reading as well. Reading is imperative. I mean, recently I've been reading a book called Letters to a Law Student by Nicholas J. McBride, just kind of preparing me for the steps ahead. I've also been reading The Secret Barrister. I think it's one of those books, and really giving me a good kind of insight before I get there, right? Preparing me, acting as a prerequisite before I do start studying law. And that's really interesting, because one question that you've actually answered, I was going to ask you, is why did you decide to do the PGDL as opposed to the MA? And you've answered that as well, talking about how obviously your parents are going to be supporting and funding. It's about kind of what you want to do as well. And I think when I saw the masters, I was kind of drawn to the dissertation element, because going into my 3rd year, I'll be doing an 8,000 word dissertation, so that's something to definitely take into consideration. Okay, that's great, Claudia, and thank you for coming on the show today. Just lastly then, how can the listeners get in touch with you after the show?
So LinkedIn, it's just my name, so Claudia Brooker. I have got Instagram, so Claudia X Brooker as well, if you wanted to send me a DM, just any advice, I'm always available. That's absolutely fine, so contact me if you have any questions or anything like that.
Excellent, that's great. So thank you everybody for thank you to you, Claudia, for coming on the show today. Thank you for your insights, for your really interesting tips as well, and for sharing your story and kind of your journey, really, because you're still on that journey to becoming a barrister. I wish you all the best with that journey, and I can really tell that you do care deeply about people, and you really do have some really great people skills, and you really are charismatic. So hopefully it will go well for you. I wish you all the best with your PGDL, and just thanks to everybody, to all my listeners as well. Thank you to you all. Do stay tuned for further updates about my merch, about kind of other updates pertaining to Faith Brunel's insights. And if you have enjoyed this episode today, do feel free to give me a 5-star review on your platform and your podcast platform of choice. Follow me at Faith the Insights for the podcast, or at Faith Brunel for my personal. Have a great day. Remember, it's not an event, it's a journey. This is your host, Faith Brunel, signing off. Bye-bye, everybody. Okay, so Claudia, how are you then? How has the week been so far?
The week's been good. I've just been quite busy sorting out work, making sure that that's all prepped, because I'm going on holiday next week, which I'm very excited for. So yeah, just a lot of things that I've got to catch up on emails and stuff before I go away. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, excellent. Yeah, great. I'm due to be going on holiday soon as well. So I'm really excited, and I'm really looking forward to that. And thank God it's after my exam, so it's a nice reward to relax. The worst thing would be going on holiday to come back to examinations. That's not ideal for me. Okay, so let's get stuck in then to some of your educational history, just to set the context to the listeners and for myself as well, to learn a bit more about you. Okay, so Claudia, what was the tipping point or the light bulb moment that kind of doing what you had done and having undertaken the kind of experience you had undertaken with no correlation to law, that you ended up becoming a paralegal at EMB Family Law? So for me, it was in 6th form. I met one of the managing partners at the firm at a careers fair, which was, quite lucky for me. To be honest, I think I knew that I wanted to get into law, but I'd been to every careers fair, and all of the lawyers I'd met before, they didn't offer work experience. It's very much, just make sure that you can try and get some work experience, enjoy your law degree, things like that. And I wasn't really gaining much from what they said. So she came along, she was new, I'd not met her before, and I went uptown and just started having a conversation. And I said, do you offer work experience? She said, yeah, sure, just send me your email. Right. So we got in contact. The week after my final A-level exam, I did a work experience placement with them just for a week. And it was amazing. It was really interesting, just doing some admin work, but also reading over cases and different case files. And and then a year later, so we didn't really maintain contact after that. But a year later, I got an email from her saying, we need some help. We've just moved office. could you come back in just to do some admin work? I said, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. And then I've been working with them for 2 years now. So yeah, I think it's a long work experience kind of placement, but I've really, really enjoyed it, and I'm still currently enjoying it.
Excellent, Claudia. I'm glad to see that you really are enjoying it as well. I think that is really important, that when you are at a place that you do enjoy it as well, because, you know, there is a controversial saying that says, let me say controversial to caveat that if you are doing something that you love, then you'll never work a day in your life. Obviously that's very controversial, because some people are like, I love my job, but I feel like I'm under pressure a lot of the time. So I'll leave the listeners to decide, you know, which side of that kind of statement they're on. But, you know, regardless of that, it's still a statement that does fit, you know, this kind of context as well, that once you do find something that you really do kind of click with, you will definitely enjoy it. Now, I want to just kind of hone in on a few things that you mentioned. So you mentioned that you kind of had the opportunity to speak to someone who worked at the firm when you're in sixth form, so that's great. And one thing I would echo to the listeners is start early, and the earlier you start, the more opportunities you will have. And I can see you nodding your head there, so you were in agreement there. But also I just want to pose a question. So how instrumental do you think careers fairs are in terms of really kind of really acquiring certain opportunities?
I think in terms of information, they're really important.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I know for a lot of law firms and chambers, they don't have, I think I was quite lucky in terms of getting work experience. I think a lot of places nowadays you've got to apply, send a cover letter, things like that. So you would need to get other advice if you were unsure about how to do that. But I think they're definitely important in terms of figuring out what kind of route you want to go down.
Definitely.
Whether for law specifically, if you want to go down the solicitor route or the barrister route, or if you want to do something completely different within law.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're really, really instrumental just to kind of broaden your horizons. I think if you limit yourself to one thing, and if you're like, well, I'm definitely going to be a barrister, and that's great if you feel like you can do that. But if you don't have experience in other things, and if you don't think that you can do anything else, you're just limiting yourself in the future, and I think that's just really harmful for your future self.
Yeah, great. Really interesting, really insightful to hear kind of your take really on that argument, because I love the phrase you said that you need to broaden your horizons, and that really just pertains to a number of things and a number of different aspects as well, because it's good to have key transferable skill that you can say, yes, I worked in a cafe, but that has taught me kind of teamwork, that's taught me kind of interacting with different types of people. And so one thing I would say, just before we obviously enter into the work experience section, but it does kind of cross over here, is that you want to make sure you have differing work experience in differing sectors with differing types of people, and that's really interesting. And it doesn't necessarily have to be work experience in person, it can be virtual work experience. And we have seen there's been a lot of technological development since the beginning of the pandemic. We have seen that, and so it's really important to kind of, let's say, jump on the trend there and do try out some virtual work experience. And that's a note to myself to mention one at the end. And there's actually one called Forage or Forage, depending on how you want to pronounce. I can see you nodding your head there, and that is a really good platform. It's formerly Inside Sherpa. And no, everybody, this is not sponsored. Again, I will also caveat that whatever I mention here is not sponsored. I want to just echo what I personally enjoy. And so just briefly then, they really offer this really great work experience. So now this kind of leads to my next question to you, Claudia. Do you prefer virtual work experience or in-person work experience?
For me personally, I think in-person work experience works better. I think specifically working with barristers, because obviously you want to be in court and you want to see how they operate and how different barristers, propose a defense or a prosecution case. I do see the benefits of virtual work experience though, 100%. I think I've undertaken work experience online with the CPS. With the Yorkshire CPS. I live in London, so there was no way I was going to go to Yorkshire to do work experience. But for me to do that online and see other people my age who are also interested in doing work experience like that was really, really helpful. I think, but again, I think it just depends on the type of work that you want to do. And how much you feel like you can benefit from it. Because I feel like if you're in person with a barrister, there are many conversations that I've had informally where we've just been able to talk about their life choices and how they've gotten to where they've been, which I think is easier to do in person than it is to do online. I think there's almost like a formal setting online where you feel like you have to be on your best behavior because you're like on the screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it just really depends on the person though, whether you thrive online or whether you thrive in person.
Right, great. Yeah, thanks for your thoughts on that as well. And yeah, as I said, it's really subjective as well. It depends on what you enjoy, how you thrive. But I want to just echo a few points. You said that when you are online, obviously there are benefits because you could be in the UK and be attending a Hong Kong, for example, virtual law fair, which obviously if it was in person and just restricted to in person, that wouldn't really be viable, nor would it be practical or realistic. On the conversely, we do see that when you're in person, as you said, you can have your informal conversations about someone's life decisions. So it really is about, weighing up those options. And I want to just kind of revert back to something you said when you were setting the scene about how you kind of, got into Alan Bailey. And you kind of said that you asked the question, and that's so imperative. Just literally, even if you feel really nervous, just kind of take a deep breath, ask a question and say, hi, do you offer work experience? And that can really take you a long way. In fact, that can be the kind of catalyst to get you into the law firm or the type of law. I can see you nodding your head there again. I'm glad we're in agreement to where you want to get to. Excellent. So yeah, and I also want to say that in terms of the admin role, I completely agree because I had the great opportunity to but I had let's say a week work experience at Shoesmith's law firm in Birmingham. It was kind of focused on like the commercial law aspect. It was so interesting, and I did various admin tasks. I got to know the team. I even had a desk for myself. I felt like I was forming part of this wonderful group, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would definitely do that again. So let me just clarify a few things. So CPS, just for everybody, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's the Crown Prosecution Service. Excellent. And can you just briefly explain what paralegal is for those who aren't aware?
Yeah, so a paralegal essentially fulfills loads of admin tasks, but also can undertake drafting, talking to clients, and they have various responsibilities in sort of helping the smooth operations of the firm. So for me personally, on a day-to-day basis, we've actually moved completely remote now because of COVID, and the cost of offices and spaces in London is absolutely ridiculous at the moment. So I mean, for me, it's sorting out through the post and making sure that people get certain court hearings and stuff on time, but also administrative tasks, talking to the court, talking to the clients, making sure they are up to date with what's going on. We also have probate and wills within our firm, so I help sort out the wills and make sure that that's all sorted. So it's definitely good because you can work with loads of different consultants and solicitors, so they can almost bring to you, can you help me draft a bundle? And as a non-law student, if you had told me 2 years ago, right, draft a bundle, I would have no clue how to do that. But now I can draft a bundle quite easily within an hour. So it's, being able to do that as a non-law student is really, really useful, because those are skills that I can take with me when I start my law studies, which a lot of people aren't going to be able to do until a couple of years later.
Yeah, exactly, Claudia. And that really kind of hones in and kind of reiterates the idea or the notion of transferable skills, because although you are a non-law student, and as am I'm a non-law student as well, it's kind of giving me hope as well. Me sitting here as a non-law student who wants to be a barrister, who is an aspiring barrister, to see how you've really excelled in that field is really interesting, and it's really great to see as well. And so I will also just put something out there to all of the non-law students. Don't worry if you're not studying law or reading law at university. It doesn't actually limit the opportunities you have. Yes, there will be certain events, yes, there will be certain kind of opportunities just for law students, but now we see that the gap is kind of being that the gap is going to be narrowed between the opportunities for non-law and law students. So don't worry. What I would echo is to just basically go to university and to and do something, and read something and study something that you enjoy, and then you can figure out the rest later as you go along. But if you want to plan meticulously, I would suggest also researching it in depth and understanding your options from there. So thanks, Claudia, for your thoughts on that. Okay, let's kind of move on then. So let's talk a bit more about Alan Bailey. Now, what kind of first attracted you to that law firm? Was it any of their values, any of their ethoses?
I think
let me rephrase. Not ethoses. Don't want to have to edit this later. Let me rephrase. Can you tell us why you chose Alan Bailey to work as paralegal? Was it to do with their kind of ethos or their values?
I think for me, firstly, it's a family law firm, and I'd not done anything in family law before. So I knew that I wanted to have some sort of experience in it, and I didn't know much about the firm. I think I did the classic, before you go to work experience, you look up the firm, you have a look and make sure that you understand what's going on. But I've learned a lot from just working with the women, because it's all women, which, you know,
Right.
men are great, but I think working with women is lovely as well.
Yeah.
I think it's just they're so friendly. We all kind of look out for each other. And for me, because obviously I'm a university student, a lot of the women are kind of very experienced and have been doing this job for quite a long time, and
Yeah.
I don't feel out of place. I don't feel like I'm, you know, being patronized or being, you know, kind of, oh, well, we'll just give her something simple to do because we need something done. It's kind of, I feel like I'm trusted, which is great. I think that's what you really need. Kind of gives you the confidence that you can do what you're doing well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for me, it's doing something different, which is family law, which I've not done before at that time.
Right.
But also seeing how they work with clients and seeing how, I mean, I'm quite dedicated to being a barrister, but they've made the job of a solicitor that much more important in my eyes, because I'm able to see how much they do on a day-to-day basis,
Yeah.
and how important they are with the different client communications between barristers and their clients.
Excellent. Yeah. So like what I gather and what I gauge from what you just said, which is really interesting, is that you kind of have gained a further or a deeper understanding as to the role of a solicitor, and it's kind of like made you a bit more aware of that as well. And yeah, I think often we can overlook it. What, you know, we can overlook one profession and say, yeah, I want to be a barrister, but you don't actually understand the nature of a job of a solicitor. And it happens in a number of different kind of sectors. I'm not just picking on the law, you know, sector there, but it can happen. And so obviously having immersed yourself in this environment is really beneficial for you as well. And as you said, you know, you use the word confidence, that you have the confidence there to fully operate and you feel comfortable, and also that you don't feel patronized as well. And I think it's important, like, no, not I think, I know it is important to really have, you know, to be in an environment where you can be yourself and where you don't feel pressured by anybody else as well. And so I would really say to the listeners, I'm sure you would echo as well, that it's important when you are looking for a job, that when you are, you know, searching, that you think about, am I comfortable here? And if you don't feel comfortable, then there's always another opportunity. Never subject yourself to an environment that isn't so untoward because you want to have a certain job. But yeah, excellent, Claudia, and thank you once again for your thoughts regarding that as well. So let's kind of delve in further then. So obviously you mentioned from the outset of this podcast episode that you're no longer obviously reading history, but you're going to be moving on to doing your PGDL. So what was it like, just briefly then, reading history at Queen Mary's University of London?
So
why do you choose it?
So specifically the reading history part, I absolutely enjoyed it. Lovely. I think for me, I don't know what it is with how it is with other history students, but I had a history teacher in sixth form who kind of persuaded me that history was something that I really, really liked. And for Queen Mary's, the course I fell in love with because the choice of modules was absolutely amazing. We had one compulsory module in first year, but the rest has all been choice, which I have not found that in any other unis, which I looked at. So yeah, I really liked that. I mean, there's certain things which I would never study, like I did the Norman Conquest in sixth form. I don't want to do that again. But I love American history and I love the 19th and 20th century. I think that's so interesting. So for me, the amount of modules that were available to do that at Queen Mary's was just like, that's what I want to do. Yeah. I think Queen Mary's as a whole, you will get mixed responses because people have been affected by strikes and then COVID, and it's been quite tedious, to say the least. But overall, I've really enjoyed my experience.
Excellent. So great reviews all around, which is great, based on, you know, both of the course aspect and obviously in terms of the university and the faculty as a whole, which is great. Yeah, I want to also say, I have also been affected by the strikes. I'm obviously at King's College London. We have had quite a few strikes, and I had like a seminar leader who just didn't show up, obviously because of the strike. So it has interrupted my studies, I have to admit. But I understand. It's like when you understand why they do it, but then you wish it never affected you to such a level. It's been quite detrimental in some cases, because we had a seminar. It was the last seminar before the end of term, and our teacher was and our lecturer wasn't actually there, and so it did impact us because we had an essay to do as well. So what are your thoughts though on that there, just briefly?
I think for me, I mean, this term I've been quite lucky because my teachers have been quite on it in terms of responding, and if they have been striking, it's not really affected me that badly. But I know for some of my friends, and even in first year, like similarly to you, we had teachers that just didn't turn up and wouldn't respond to emails, and then we'd have to write a 2,000-3,000 word essay on something we've not been taught, and I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about, you know, Hobbes or something like that, and I'm just like, okay, right, I've got to figure this out. So I think I get, similar to what you said, I get why they do it, but when it is weeks on end and we've had COVID, I don't feel like I've had the university experience that I was expecting to have. And that's quite upsetting as well, because, you know, I'm going to be going into law school, and it's not going to be the same, like, not that I was a party student or anything like that, but certain things and certain times and experiences that I could have had with my friends I wasn't able to have, and then to have that also interrupted with my studies is just not the best thing that could have happened. You've got to, it's the same thing with anything in life. You've got to kind of make what you will of it, and it's kind of how you persevere through it. So everyone just has to kind of grin and bear it, really.
Exactly. So, but I was going to say that, you know, kind of just like adding on to that. So one thing that I was really grateful for within King's, that even though my seminar leader didn't come, she did like which was really great, she rearranged the course. So let's say week 10 she wasn't going to be there, she would deliberately change the essay question accordingly, so it wasn't that much of a struggle. So in the end, as you said, we were able to kind of make something out of it. And so that is that. So I'd say, well, it wasn't too badly affected. It was probably like maybe one or two seminars, but I like how, you know, even within that, the King's member of staff were able to kind of quickly adapt and help us out, because even though they weren't going to be on emails, they still were like, okay, Faith, you know, here, I'm going to be here until then, so do book your office hours in. And they did really give us those opportunities, so kudos to them as well. And I'm glad that you weren't too badly affected. And it's unfortunate how a few of your friends were affected as well, but hopefully as they kind of journey further, there won't be as many hurdles or interruptions. But I want to take this opportunity to mention a quote. There's he's a Black American educator called Booker T. Washington, and he said that success is not to be made by kind of what you have achieved, but by the obstacles that you have kind of overcome to get to your success. And it really speaks to me profoundly, because as you said, it kind of ties in what you said there, that make what you can out of it. And he's saying that when you're successful, you want to look back and have a look at all of the obstacles that you've overcome, and that is really, really important. And so even here as students, we have really gone through a lot. You know, we had at the beginning, we had COVID-19, okay, huge factor here. We now have the strikes. We even had there was some kind of issues with the accommodation. I'm not sure if you remember the early days of the rent as well, rebates and things. So we've gone through a lot, this cohort, right? But we're still coming out strong. And I think let's just echo now on mental health. So obviously we know that mental health is really, really important. Now, do you feel, what tips would you give to those who are struggling with their mental health at the moment?
I think it's completely understandable with everything that has been going on with the world, that people are suffering from different mental health issues. The best thing obviously is to talk to someone like a professional, different counselling services. But even within that, it's also important to make sure that you take time for yourself. I'm not sure how it is with other unis, but with Queen Mary, you get certain amounts of extenuating circumstances, kind of more time to do assignments and things like that. And I think take advantage of those, because if you are really struggling, you do need that extra time, because you don't want to force yourself to cram in an essay which you might think is good, but you could, if you had maybe 3 or 4 more days to do, could be excellent, could get you a first or really high 2-1. So I think just make sure that you take time for yourself, that you feel as best organized as you could be. And another thing I'd say is don't leave things to the last minute, because that always, whether you suffer from anxiety or anything like that, it will always cause some sort of anxiety if you leave things to the last minute. And a few of my friends from last year would leave assignments until the very end deadline in August, and they'd still have 3 or 4 assignments due in a week. And for me, that baffles my mind. I can't cope thinking like that. But then again, if you feel like you are that type of person, try and make yourself a bit more organized. But again, like I said, talk to a professional, talk to your friends about it, because it's just easier than keeping anything bottled up and keeping things to yourself. It's not going to help anyone.
I think there is something about like not keeping it, inside. Don't bottle it up, everyone. Share it with somebody. And even if you don't feel like you have friends to share it with, there are people at university, there are designated specialists there. You can even give like the kind of, you can call the NHS as well and talk about your mental health struggles. And I know that within King's, in particular, I can only really speak about King's, but within King's we have